You've probably noticed that on social media, everyone's got a different diet that they all swear is the one to control your blood sugar. And if you're not doing their diet, you're doing it wrong. And I always hear from you guys, from my viewers, on how frustrating and how confusing this all is. And a lot of you guys have been on many of these diets. You've tried the low fat and the low carb and the vegan and the keto. And the truth is, most people, not everyone, but most people struggle to stay on these diets long term. That is why in this video, I'm not going to sell you some diet that I like and I want everybody to eat the same. Instead, we're going to talk about foods that have the most consistent scientific evidence behind them when it comes to diabetes, blood sugar, and hemoglobin A1c. And then you can integrate those foods into whatever diet works for you. We'll also cover some foods that people often think are diabetes friendly, but can actually cause harm. And at the end of the video, I want to share a supplement that has really impressive evidence behind it and a cooking trick that most people are not using, but can help you push that hemoglobin A1c even lower. So when we look at all of these studies on lowering hemoglobin A1c, one thing that keeps popping up over and over are foods rich in magnesium. Hemoglobin A1c is a readout of average glucose levels over 3 months, and magnesium has a powerful impact on glucose metabolism. When insulin binds to cells and regulates their function, magnesium is required for that process. Magnesium also promotes glucose transport into cells and out of circulation. So if we don't have enough magnesium around, insulin doesn't work normally and we become insulin resistant, and glucose can't be transported into cells and out of circulation efficiently, and we get higher blood sugar levels. A great source of magnesium are tree nuts like almonds, walnuts, cashews, and pecans. One meta-analysis of randomized control trials showed that a diet emphasizing tree nuts significantly lowered hemoglobin A1c and fasting blood sugar. As we go through all of these tips and different foods, bear in mind the effects are usually stronger in diabetics because they have the highest hemoglobin A1c to begin with. Some of these strategies show some effect in pre-diabetes as well, but more modest. And then the healthier the person, the less likely that you're going to see much of an effect. That all makes sense, right? Another food rich in magnesium are flax seeds, which have also been shown to help lower hemoglobin A1c. Okay, another pattern that emerges from all of these studies on hemoglobin A1c reduction are polyphenols. Polyphenols are natural compounds present in low glycemic index fruits like berries. Strawberries are great sources of polyphenols, and citrus fruits, pomegranates have polyphenols as well, onions, and some green vegetables like spinach, broccoli, or asparagus. The reason polyphenols are so helpful is they have an anti-inflammatory and also antioxidant effect, and they also promote insulin sensitivity. And all of these processes have a positive impact on your glucose metabolism. Now, one polyphenol that is particularly powerful is curcumin. Curcumin is a bright yellow chemical present in turmeric, which is a spice popular in Indian cuisine. A large meta-analysis showed that curcumin helps lower fasting blood sugar, HbA1c, which is a measure of insulin resistance, hemoglobin A1c, and fasting insulin. Here's how it works. Curcumin activates membrane transporters that allow glucose to enter fat and muscle cells, and that helps reduce blood sugar levels. Curcumin also reduces the amount of glucose that is produced by your own liver and pumped into the bloodstream. And it also supports the function of the beta cells of your pancreas that produce insulin. So it improves insulin secretion and blood sugar control. Normally, curcumin is not very well absorbed, but there's a way to boost it. If you also include some black pepper in your recipe, pepper contains a compound called berberine, and berberine powerfully promotes the absorption of curcumin by thousands of times. Okay, another food that has been shown to help lower A1c is garlic. When we crush garlic and we let it rest for a few minutes without cooking it right away, a compound is formed called allicin, and allicin enhances the function of the insulin receptor. So it helps insulin communicate with cells better and regulate their metabolism. Allicin also helps your body fight inflammation and oxidative stress, and it also improves glucose metabolism in your liver. All right, another important nutrient to optimize A1c are healthy fats. When it comes to diabetes and blood sugar, all we hear about is carbs and sugars and carbs. But there's a lot of other nutrients that also play important roles. One meta-analysis of 102 randomized control trials showed that unsaturated fats, both mono and polyunsaturated fats, lowered hemoglobin A1c when eaten in place of refined starch, added sugars, or saturated fats. Where can we find these healthy mono and polyunsaturated fats? Well, in addition to nuts and seeds, which we've already talked about, you can also find them in extra virgin olive oil. Fatty fish like salmon is another good source. Avocados and olives have them as well. One fat in particular, omega-3s, which are a type of polyunsaturated fatty acids that are found in seafood, fatty fish, seaweed, and walnuts, have them as well. And omega-3s have been shown to help reduce fasting blood sugar, hemoglobin A1c, insulin resistance, triglycerides, and LDL cholesterol. Fish and seafood are also good sources of another important nutrient, and that's protein. And protein is another nutrient that can help lower hemoglobin A1c because it promotes insulin secretion from the pancreas. Protein is insulinogenic, and so it helps blood sugar control. And protein also promotes satiety, that feeling of fullness after meals. So that helps us lose some weight, some excess fat mass. And one of the most powerful triggers to lower hemoglobin A1c is to lose excess fat, especially visceral fat. This is why you see everybody on social media claiming their diet is the one that reverses diabetes. It usually comes down to weight loss. Weight loss consistently improves hemoglobin A1c even on diets that are not healthy long-term. So all of these ideas that are popular on social media, if you want to reverse your diabetes, you need to cut all the fat from your diet. Anything fatty has to go. Fat causes diabetes. Or you need to cut any carbohydrate from your diet. Eating carbohydrates causes diabetes. Or you need to cut all animal foods from your diet. That's the only way to reverse diabetes. It's true that some people do well on these different diets, but none of that is necessary, and none of that is the root cause of diabetes. We have plenty of randomized trials reversing diabetes that do none of that. So carrying excess fat is bad news when it comes to glucose metabolism. And fat is especially bad when it's located in our visceral organs, inside the liver and the pancreas, because it messes up their function. Our liver produces glucose when we're not eating, when we're fasting, to prevent our blood sugar from getting too low, which is dangerous. And when everything's working normally, when we're healthy, the liver produces just the right amount, and the pancreas tells the liver, hey, we got enough, you can stop. And the liver maintains that level in the healthy range. But excess fat inside these organs scrambles them, it messes up their function, and the liver can keep making glucose and pumping it into circulation, and our glucose level gets too high. This is why you can have high blood sugar in the morning, you're fasted, you haven't eaten anything in 12 hours, and your blood sugar is high. Your body made most of that. It didn't come from food. So our blood sugar is about a lot more than just the sugar we eat. So it's a good idea to try to have some protein with most meals when you're trying to lower your A1c. Fatty fish, as we said, is a good source. A piece of grilled chicken breast is another good idea. Or legumes like lentils or tofu. Seitan is another good source of protein. Now, just like we want to favor healthy foods, we want to avoid the bad ones. And some of the worst offenders when it comes to putting on excess fat mass are highly processed carbohydrates and added sugars, sugary soda, pastries, cookies, cakes, sugary cereals like Lucky Charms or Cocoa Puffs. Replacing those foods with a source of healthy protein or a healthy fat or a low glycemic index, a whole unprocessed carbohydrate like a non-starchy vegetable or a piece of fruit or a legume is a great move to improve your A1c. Another source of protein is dairy. And dairy is very heterogeneous. There's many different types. And we see the best results for probiotic fermented milk, also known as kefir. A meta-analysis of randomized trials published recently, just 2024, showed that kefir lowered fasting glucose, hemoglobin A1c, cholesterol levels, and the inflammatory marker C-reactive protein. Another nutrient that consistently pops up in research with good results is soluble fiber. This is a specific type of fiber that feeds your microbiome, the bugs in your gut. and allows them to produce short-chain fatty acids. And short-chain fatty acids reduce insulin resistance. They boost the production of hormones by your gut that increase insulin secretion by the pancreas, and they also improve glucose uptake into cells. One meta-analysis found that adding some soluble fiber to a diet was successful in reducing hemoglobin A1c. It also helped lower triglycerides and body weight. Foods rich in soluble fiber include chia seeds, kiwi, oranges, apples, some green vegetables like okra or Brussels sprouts are good sources as well. And for people who have trouble tolerating a lot of fiber-containing foods, psyllium husk is one way to go. Psyllium husk is a powder that contains soluble fiber, and you can drink it dissolved in water or in a smoothie, for example. Okay, there's one last food that's actually more like a condiment that can help, and that's apple cider vinegar. Apple cider vinegar has been shown in randomized trials to help lower hemoglobin A1c and fasting glucose, and it does that by slowing down the digestion of carbohydrates. The way most people take apple cider vinegar is they take 1 or 2 tablespoons and they mix it in water and they drink that right before a meal or during a meal. Now, there are some foods that are sold as healthy but can actually spell trouble for your blood sugar. Yogurt has a halo of a health food because it's a probiotic, but most flavored yogurts out there are basically glorified candy. They have a lot of added sugars. If you want to have some yogurt, I would suggest some Greek yogurt, unsweetened, no sugar added. And if you want, you can add a piece of fruit or a non-sugary sweetener like stevia or allulose. Another treacherous one are flavored instant oats. The oats in these products are pre-cooked and chopped, and they have a lot of sugar added. If you want to have some oats, you're much better off with steel-cut oats, no sugar added, or rolled oats. And if you have glucose issues, you can tone down the glycemic index of oats by mixing it with a protein source like milk, for example, or Greek yogurt, or you can have it with berries. The polyphenols in berries help as well. Another tricky one is dried fruit, which is fine for a healthy person, but if you have high A1C, you want to avoid large portions of dried fruit because it's got a lot of concentrated sugar. All the water's been dried out. And dried fruit is much easier to overeat than the whole unprocessed fruit. Okay, before we talk about supplements, let's go over some food preparation tricks. This is less about what to eat and more about how to eat it. One strategy that is fairly well known is to change the order in which you eat foods. One randomized trial asked patients with diabetes to eat vegetables before they ate carbier foods. And after 2 years of maintaining this habit, they found that their hemoglobin A1c was significantly lower. So that's a pretty low barrier strategy for people who struggle making large changes to their diet. Can they change the order of the foods that they eat? And that can help a bit. Another nifty trick has to do with resistant starch. And resistant starch is a type of carbohydrate that doesn't get broken down, doesn't get digested in the small intestine. That's where the name comes from, resistant. And it makes it to the large intestine, where it then gets fermented by our microbiome. And resistant starch is found naturally in foods like legumes, whole grains, and also green bananas, unripe bananas. But you can also create your own resistant starch by cooking a starchy food, like a potato or some pasta, and then cooling it in the fridge overnight. This cooling process creates resistant starch in the food. And the cool thing is, pun intended, that resistant starch is resistant now to heating. So you can reheat the food all you want. The resistant starch is not destroyed. One meta-analysis found that adding resistant starch to a diet reduced hemoglobin A1c, fasting blood sugar, insulin, cholesterol, and some inflammatory markers. Not bad for eating the exact same food with just one extra preparation step. Okay, let's talk about supplements. And one supplement that has impressive results when it comes to A1C is berberine. Berberine is the active component of a herb that is often used in Chinese traditional medicine. A meta-analysis of 46 randomized control trials found that berberine helped reduce hemoglobin A1c when compared to a placebo. And the impressive part is that this effect was similar to what we see with some diabetes medications like metformin. So they saw a similar reduction for metformin or berberine, and then they saw an additive effect. When you add both, then the reduction was even more impressive. Berberine has even been tested in pre-diabetics. and average hemoglobin A1c dropped all the way to the normal range. Some side effects have been reported, like with any drug or supplement ever. Some people report GI distress. That's the most common one. Couple important things if you decide to take Berberine, consider a brand that is third-party tested. Because with supplements, it's always so hard to know what's actually in the pill because there's almost no regulation. So they can actually advertise one dosage on the packet, and then inside the pill you can have a lot more or a lot less. And as always, work with your doctor because Berberine can interact with other meds, including diabetes meds, and you want to keep an eye on your glucose. You don't want that to drop too low too fast. That's dangerous. And finally, vitamin D supplementation has also been shown in trials to help reduce hemoglobin A1c, especially in people who are vitamin D deficient, who are not getting enough vitamin D. Okay, what about exercise? Is there a workout that's best to lower A1c? We actually covered that question in this previous video, so check it out, and I'll meet you in there.